Good evening. My name is Minjan from Momentum Learning, and this is our open house for APCSA exam prep class that we're going to offer in the spring semester. Of course, the purpose is to help students to do well in the upcoming APCSA exam. Many students are taking this class in school. This is a 2-semester, a whole year class, and some are concerned or worried. Can we do well or get a perfect score 5 out of 5 in the APCSA exam? So this class is designed and also prepared to help students to achieve this goal, to excel in the APCSA exam. And some students may have the chance to take the exam, but the school does not offer the class or there's not enough spot. Many schools find out there is a lot of demand for this class, but the capacity for the class is limited. So some students cannot take the APCSA class, but still wants to take the APCSA exam, and this is also to help them. But anyway, this is a class to help students. So here at Momentum Learning, we're going to offer this one for about 12 weeks. Each week, we're going to spend 2 hours. So by no means that we're going to replace the APCSA class that you're going to take in school. And actually, we're going to assume some students that have taken the full semester, so have learned the basic concepts, for example, the variables, the programming flow, arrays, and so on. So that this one is to help students for supplementary purpose. But we're going to be more specific, try to help you to do the best in the APCSA exam. All right, okay, let's get started. So this is a brief introduction of myself. My name is Ming. I've been teaching computer science for the past 15, 20 years. At Momentum Learning, we have done a lot of teaching for competitive math, physics, computer science, especially for, I've been teaching with the USCO, USA Computing Olympiad. So with the feedback demand from many parents and students, we decided to offer this class in the spring semester to help students, as I said just earlier, right, to do perfect, to get a perfect score in the APCSA exam. Just want to let you know, right, this test is not hard as many of students were worried. It is easier, much easier than you thought. If you had the concern earlier. So believe us, this is achievable. With the good preparation, with the good guidance, you would have no trouble to do perfect in the exam. The class, we're going to help students to get familiar with the concepts, the topics that are covered in the APCSA exam, and also help students to be able to write the code to solve the problems. The first part, you have the multiple choice questions. So if you understand it, if you know the input, if you know the output, and you know the which piece of the program, right, would, if you run it, would give you the right output. So those would be more frequent in the multiple choice part. And in the second part, the free response part, you have to write the code yourself. So this class also will help you to do that one. And of course, both parts, part 1, multiple choices, part 2, free response questions, right? You have to do a lot of practice. Okay, so you have to know the ins and outs, the details for pretty much all the topic that will be covered in the test. But again, right, we don't need you to be, say, normally, right, like in school, if you want to get an A, you have to be, say, 90 or above, or some schools, right, you have to be, say, 93 or above to get an A. Here is different. You don't have to get 90% of the questions correct to get a 5 out of 5. Actually, pretty much roughly from the past several years, if you can get 70 72% or more in the test, then you would get an A. So it's much easier than to get an A or A plus right in your school. So you should have the confidence. This one, we're going to help students in class, and you can also attend our office hour. Actually, I'm going to hold the office hour every Thursday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Central Time. If you have any question, you can come to me. Also at Zoom meeting, we can discuss in further details. All right, okay, so that's the basic setup. For APCS, the statistics here, this one is actually from the College Board website. For these 5 subjects, the math, calculus AB, calculus BC, APCS A, APCS principal, and also AP statistics. So these are the 5 subjects for math and computer science because they are so closely related, right? If you want to get a 5, you have to be the top for AP calculus AB, right? You have to be top 22.4%. For calculus BC, 43.5%. APCS A, about 27% would get a 5. Okay, even though the APCS principle is easier, there is no programming part. You don't have to write actual code in that class or that test. But to get a 5, actually, it's only 11 or 12% to get a 5. Does it mean that APCS APCS principle would be harder than the APCS A? Actually, it's not. This is actually not a known for these 2. The same thing, right? AP Calculus BC actually would be more demanding than AP Calculus AB, but still, the percentage for 5 for BC, right, is almost like 44%. That's much higher than the others. Does it mean, well, easier? Actually, it's not, because the pool for AP Calculus BC is smaller. If you take the people with a 5 out of all the people taking the AP Calculus BC test, right? Actually, if the denominator, the pool is much smaller, than the percentage actually goes up. The same thing here. There are far more students taking the APCS principle since it does not require any programming experience. So more students are taking this one. So if you divide the number of students getting 5 by the total number of students taking the exam, then the percentage actually goes lower. Okay, next question. So this is, a common confusion among many students. Actually, the lowest percentage for the 5 among all the subjects actually would be the AP Physics 1. That one is about 5%, 6%. So does it mean that AP Physics 1 would be the hardest one? Not be that case. Actually, AP Physics B or C, AP Physics C, the kinetics and the EMS actually would be harder than the AP Physics 1, but the percentage actually for Physics 1 is much lower. The same reason, because many students think Physics 1 would be a easier class required for science. So many students are taking it, but not many students can take it, get a 5. So the percentage goes down. So here APCSA actually would be harder than AP CS principal, but still the percentage for CSA actually would be higher. The reason is the pool is smaller. All right, so you get an idea, right? So about a quarter of students would get a 5. So it's not too bad. But for you, if you want to take the test, of course, your goal would be get a 5. Do get a 5, right? Then probably that will help you for your college application process. And also maybe in college, you don't have to take the CS 101. Well, depends. Sometimes maybe you want to take it, but sometimes you want to skip it. So anyway, if you do have the choice, if you do get a 5, you do have the choice to skip it, or you can retake it in college. It's up to you. APCSA exam, actually, there are 2 essential components according to College Board. One is the computational thinking practice, and also the other one is the content and the topics. So for the thinking practice, these are the 5 items. You need to know how to design and also develop algorithm. Well, don't be scared, actually. This one is especially realistic or obvious in the multiple choice part, because actually you're not writing the code for the design and also algorithm development. You just need to know what code given to you, right? What code segments would produce the given output. So you don't have to write, you just say, okay, looking at the code, which choice would give the expected output? So should be easier, because someone taking the, say, computing Olympiad, that is actually the actual program design and also the algorithm development. So this one is actually easier, much easier. Code logic, you have to determine the output value, the result, given the input and also the program. So basically, without using the computer during the APCSA test, you don't, or especially for the multiple choice part, you don't have the computer with you. You cannot run the program. So you have to imagine you are the computer. What if you execute all the commands in a segment? Then what do you think the output would be? So this one is, imagine you are the computer, simulate the process. Code implementation, you're going to write and implement. This part actually would be done in the free response part. You're going to actually read some of the code that has been given to you. Normally would be the class implementation, some of the methods given to you, and you're going to specifically write some methods. Normally that would be in part A, part B, part C, like that. Okay, so this is the only one that would be tested in the free response questions. And then the practice 1, 2, 4, 5 actually would be tested in the multiple choice parts. Part 4, that's code testing. So analyze for the correctness, whether the code is correct or wrong. If it is wrong, how do you fix it? Equivalence, do two pieces of code, right, will give the same answer. And what scenario? Sometimes maybe they're the same, sometimes actually they may be different. And sometimes, right, they will ask you, right, whether this would be an error. So if you run it, you would get an error. Maybe it's an error that before even you run it. Or sometimes would it be the mistake or the error, right, that you're going to get when you actually run the program. So those combination time error or the runtime errors, okay, these actually would be tested. And also documentation, describe the behavior and the condition that will produce the results. So actually don't underestimate this part here. This is a part that actually at Momentum, we do emphasize the importance of documentation and write comments, even though this one is just for human reader, not for computer. Computers will ignore the documentation, but it is for human, either for the author of the code or for the reader, the user of the code. So it is very important to describe clearly and concisely if you want to communicate effectively. So this part is actually important. We have been always emphasizing actually throughout the all the courses in computer science, effective communication is very important, not only for your course study, but also for your future study and also career. Especially when many students in STEM, in computer science, right, are strong in logical reasoning, but some actually are not so effective or strong in communication. So this actually is a good part that can help you to develop those skills. The content, that's called topics, that would be the second essential component in the APCS exam, CSA exam. Actually, there are 10 units that will be covered in the APCSA test. You can see here, this is actually the weight for the exam, but appears in the multiple choice part. Look at this one here. So iteration, that's for loops. You're going to do the for loops, small loops, right? This one actually takes, for single item, actually, this one takes the biggest weight. And then you have the array, 1D array here, and that's the 2D array. If you put it together, right, that's actually up from, say, 17.5 to 25%. Actually, if you combine these two arrays, actually would be carry more weight than the iteration, the loops. And then you have the array lists, and you have the primitive data types, the conditional statements, the Boolean expression, if statement, that's the conditional statement, right? So these are the basic program flow. So of course, there will be the majority will take the majority of the score. And then also this one, you have to do the writing classes and also using objects. So that is actually how you do the object-oriented programming. And also you're going to do somehow the inheritance. Unit 9 now deals with inheritance, and this part actually carried more weight, a lot more weight than now the 5 to 10%. Of course, this is also reflected in the APCSA exam. This exam actually was called APCSA B exam. It had the emphasis in object-oriented programming. So inheritance actually carried a lot more weight because it was one of the most important aspects that made Java the most popular language, overtaken C++. Actually, for this exam, APCSAB, before 2004, it was administrated in C++, because C++ was once the most popular language used worldwide by programmers. And then due to the success of object-oriented programming, Java was actually the first such language to fully implement OOP, object-oriented programming. So Java actually became the most popular language. That means the number of users worldwide is actually bigger than the number of users in C++. Actually, now Java is not the most popular one. Actually, the number of users writing in Python actually is more than the number of people writing in Java. But still, the number of people writing in Python, Java, and C++ actually are not very different. They are the top 3 languages in the programming languages field. I mean, general purpose programming languages. So these are the top 3, not far away. But anyway, Python has overtaken. So maybe in the future, right, this class, APCSA class, and also the APCSA exam may be administrated using Python. So that may change. Anyway, so far not there yet, because Python is still trying to make it truly object-oriented. So maybe this one still would be there, or if Python does become the language, then this one actually would carry less weight. But by all means, the OOP is still the most important feature that you're going to encounter in big project development, because it does lower the cost dramatically compared with languages that we call the functional language, not the OOP based. Recursion also used to be carry more weight in the APCSAB, where data structures and algorithms also were an important part. Now it is not there. So here, if you see the weight, right, only about 5 and 7.5% in the multiple choice questions. So the difficulty level actually has been reduced from APCSAB to APCSA. So this A only carries about the basic program flow. The B part actually has more to do with the data structures and also the algorithms. So that part has been removed. So this test actually becomes easier, or maybe not easy, but will take less time to prepare. Before, students need to spend much more time to prepare to get a 5 out of 5. All right, okay. Here, the exam format, I'm going to just go briefly. So section 1 or part 1, that's the multiple choice questions. There are 40 questions, and you'll have 90 minutes to finish. Inside this part, you cannot get help of a computer. During the pandemic, actually, this one was not in the test because you had to take the test using a computer. So sometimes it's not realistic. Anyway, this will consist 50% of the total score. And then you have section 2, that's the free response questions. And here you also have 90 minutes. So total, that's 3 hours. Here you have 4 questions. And that also, the score would be 50, or half of the total score here. Okay, as we just said, right, we're going to do the thinking practice is 1, 2, 4, 5, as I just went through here, right? 1, 2, 4, 5, that will be for multiple choice questions. Most of the questions you're going to read a short description, sometimes short, sometimes maybe a little bit longer. When I say short, right, maybe just a few lines, and sometimes longer, maybe you have to read a whole page before you see the actual problems. Sometimes you do have a description, maybe half page, maybe 1 page, and then you're going to see the next 2 questions that are all based from this description. So even though here you have only multiple choice questions, you don't have to write the code, still a lot of reading. For 40 problems here, for each one you have to read quite a lot. So the reading here is not the same as the other standard test, where especially right like SAT, ACT, where the reading actually you can read fast. Here you can't. You cannot skim, and then even sometimes, right, you don't understand a particular description or paragraph or sentence, right? It's okay. Does not impact how you solve the subsequent questions. But here, reading has to be careful, just like math. You have to really understand every sentence. Almost all the time, every piece of information should be relevant. So you cannot afford to misunderstand or confuse the meaning. But reading in math actually would be better. Most of the time, right, the questions in math, say AP, calculus AB or BC, right, the description should be shorter. Here you have to read carefully and also you have to read faster. So that's a challenge. The second part, 4 questions where you have to actually read actually a lot also, and then you have to write the code. I have to say, writing part is not that bad compared with your say weekly projects where you have to write a lot more. Here you're given the setup, as I said earlier, right? You'll be given, say, the class setting, or if you have to write a class, then you have to do that one. But most of the time, you would be given how a class has been defined, and some methods have been defined already for you. Or even sometimes, if the method, right, you don't have to understand the details. You just need to know what it does. What's the input? What's the output? So you can use those methods. So that will make your life easier. And then what you need to do is say implement specifically for maybe for this method, for this class. So normally writing is not that bad. Actually, not too much. Maybe, maybe 5 lines, 10 lines at most. So that's actually for many students, right, with experience with other, say, competitive programming, this actually is much easier. All right, okay, so I don't have to go through the details here. As I said, right, the thinking practice is 1, 2, 4, 5 would be for this one here. And then this part will only deal with the practice 3. And then 4 problems, they're going to be dealt with objects, classes, and also array lists. So this part still would say, right, array and array lists, actually arrays 1D, 2D, array list, right? That would be about 1/3 of the weight. So still, this one is like a big component here. And also that's 1D array, 1D array list, and also 2D arrays. So they are actually very important also in the second section 2. This part you have to practice a lot for coding. And many of you, right, in the regular weekly projects, you have done these a lot. So stick with those, and then you're going to feel much better during the contest. During the APCSA test. The exam date, that's May 8th, normally the first week of the AP tests. For this class, we hope, right, you have taken the APCSA class in school, or if you're not taking the class, but you have studied the materials. This class is just to help you, not want to teach the concepts and also the topics from the very beginning. That will make life much easier, much harder. So here you're going to spend 2 hours in class and also 1 or 2 hours after class for homework. And we're going to also show how the homework will be assigned and be graded. Some examples here. So this is one example for multiple choice questions. So this will be very short here. The description has just one line and it could be given the 5 choices A, B, C, D. And for all these 40 multiple choice questions, only one of them is the right answer. So this is actually a very typical question. Generate a number, integer number between 25 and 60 inclusive. So which command would do the job, right? So here you're given this segment, in this case, right, just one line. Which one do you think would produce the expected result? If you know this one, if you have used this function, say math.random, right, then you know the result. If you have never used it, then this will be hard. You have no idea what to do. So practice. Or if you know it, it's easy. If you don't know it, then it's hard. This is actually another one, but this time you're going to read longer. So here, well, I put them side by side, but actually in the actual test, you're going to have the code like this one, and then this part, right, will be displayed maybe below here or maybe on another page. So you're going to read maybe half page for the description. And then the question comes here. It says, if the two functions or the two methods, right, if they have to behave exactly, then what do you think you should change? Because so far it's not. So if it asks this way, then you know, right, so far they do not produce the same result, or they're not identical or equivalent. But if you change something, they would become identical or equivalent. So it asks, which change should you take so that the two methods would be equivalent? So that's what I just explained earlier, right? So be asked for code equivalence. So again, if you know the code, right? Suppose you are the computer, if you execute or run the commands and you can get the result. And for the second method, right, the same thing. Maybe take different values of n as input, and do you think they would get the same result after the change here, right? If I take choice A, do they produce the same result for any different input n? If it's not, I'm going to check B, otherwise C and D and E. So here, actually for each one, you may take more time. So even though you have 90 minutes, only 40 questions, but actually time does fly for in the first part. Actually, many students would say, after the first part, I'm so tired because you have to be so intensive. Imagine you're the computer and run the programs or run the code segment to check the result or check whether there is an error. Anyway, so that's the typical way for the multiple choice questions. Sometimes short, sometimes could be long. So here for this second example, if you put the description and also the problem, actually they will take pretty much one full page. So it is not that trivial. Again, reading skills you have to practice. This is an example free response questions. Many times people referring to this one as FRQ, free response questions. Actually, this is a copy from this course description, APCSA course and exam description. I take the first sample free response question. So this one takes about half page and then followed by two full pages, and actually not over, right? And two more. So four pages, and this one half. So that's about 5 full pages to read. So this actually reinforces what I just said earlier, right? So you have to read a lot. Of course, right, in the second part, you only have 4 problems, but still, remember, right, you have to read each one carefully. Even though a lot of them, right, you have the comments documentation. So whenever you have the /* and the // right, the part between them, they would be comments, but you still have to read the comments to understand the meaning, either for the class definition or for the method, like this one. So you need to understand what you need to do for this function or the method, and then you're going to implement this method in part A. So for each of the 4 free response questions, there are multiple parts, part A, part B, sometimes part C, and normally would be 2 or 3 parts, but could go D, 4 parts. That has happened before. Anyway, so you have to understand, and sometimes maybe function or method, right, has been defined, but the implementation not shown. That means in your code part A, part B, part C, right, you can still use the method even though you don't have the details. Actually, this has caused a lot of confusion or anger among some students. Say, okay, I don't know what this one is. I don't know how they behave. How can I use it? Actually, so this is actually what we're going to provide the training. So in our classes, for the free response questions, actually, we're going to give you the part, even though this part says, right, implementation not shown, actually, we are going to show them for you, provide those if you are not so confident. And then if you hide the implementation, if this one, right, is say implementation not shown, so you can hide it, and now you do it on paper. Will that change? After enough practice, then our prior experience found actually many students find that actually it's not that bad. So we would go through, you're going to actually answer those questions, free response questions, actually first on the computer. So actually you would have those, say, class definition like this, right? Public class check digit. Actually, you would have everything that is, if it says, right, this one has, you can use it, right, then you would have the working code. And then you're going to write your part for part A, for part B, for part C. Actually, you can run it on your computer and then see, okay, whether you get the right result. We're going to give the input, we're going to give the output, and you can run it, right, to see whether your code actually would produce right output. So if that helps, that's great. And then gradually we're going to say, okay, if we cover the implementation, so even though it is there, but we're going to hide it. We're going to hide the content of the specific methods or the functions, right? And now this time, you're still going to write the code on your computer. I can run it. Okay, this time you don't see the code, but you do know, right, the code is there, just it's hidden. And then the final step would be, say, now if you do it on paper, this part again, you don't have access to a computer during the actual during the actual APCSA test. You don't have the computer, so this part actually giving it to you or not, right, does not make any difference. So now assume this method is working. How you're going to use them? Hopefully, right, if you want to use it, right, then you can use it. You say, what if I don't use them? That's fine. But almost all the time, those methods, given the right, if they appear in the code, more or less, they should be used. They should be helpful. So we're going to train you so that you're going to feel more comfortable to write the code on paper. One more part that for the free response questions, actually, this also has changed in the past decade. It used to be the case, if you make a mistake, say, I missed a semicolon, because if you don't have a semicolon after each command, then your IDE, right, integrated development environment. So for example, right, you can use VS Code, the Visual Basic Code, or the Eclipse or IntelliJ, right? All these actually would give you the error message signs. Okay, yeah, your code still has error, syntax error. So you would know you missed maybe a semicolon, you missed a closing brace, and so on, right? But if you take the test, right, on paper, there's no way you would get the help from an IDE. So it used to be the case, right? If you make mistake, you would get the penalty, but you did not get the penalty for, say, the same mistake. Say, I did miss semicolon for 2 separate lines. You will not get the penalty twice, but once. Now, actually, for these mistakes, actually, you will not get penalized. So if you miss a semicolon, or if you misspell, okay, a common mistake would be, say, array list. If you write ARAY, so this happened actually a lot during the grading array list, right? Many times you would see ARAY and list. Now, actually, if you do this one here, it will not deduct a point, because anyways, it's obvious, right? if you do write this one using a computer, right, then the computer would tell you there's a spelling error. And also, if you don't have the matching braces, if it is obvious, so you have the code here, and then the next one, so this is say for one method, you have another function. So this is say method 1, this is method 2, right? You do have the opening brace, but you forgot the closing brace. And here you do have the opening and then the closing, right? If it's obvious that is a typo or error, right, then you would not get penalized. Okay, before actually, a decade ago, actually, you would be penalized, the carries a penalty. So now it makes it a little bit easier. Still, many are still concerned, right? What if I make the mistakes? So don't be afraid. Actually, this part will be graded by humans, not by computers. Maybe years later, right, this will change. Actually, it is our belief or our suggestion. APCSA test, right, should be administered using a computer. Actually, some other AP tests, even languages, right, AP Spanish, actually would it be you have to take it using a computer. Then why this one not a computer? Of course, if this one is on a computer, then the format would change. Then like those, say, which one would give you a number right between 25 and 60, right? Just run a few times. Then you can understand, you can see right which one is right. So these questions actually they have to change. Anyway, this may change. The purpose of such a test is to check whether you have actually grasped the essential concepts or the tools in computer science or in general computer programming. Actually, does not matter whether this one is in Java or C++ or Python or some other language. They should apply to other different languages. Lucy, okay, your question, right? Last year got 4 and this year to get 5. Actually, we'll just review what we just said, and we're very confident every student actually should get 5 if they follow our guideline and also our practices. So we do hope this class, even though it's not taking too much effort, this would be combined with the APCSA test the students are taking in school or studying by themselves. And with our help, then the APCSA test would become easier. Okay, so this is our format at Momentum. And you can, if you register, you'll be given such account here at Canvas. And you're going to use this link to join in. Click on this one, and you're going to go to the Zoom class. That is the Zoom. Oh, okay. Zoom ID is not shown here anyway. So if you click this one here, you would be taken to the Zoom class. The link would be sent to you about 4 to 5 days before the start date. And actually, this will be sent to student, not to parent. Be careful. And we're going to store all the information at Zoom. So if you check the modules, once you log into Canvas, you're going to see here the modules, right? You're going to see the week 1, week 2, week 3, right? All the weeks, and you have handout, you have homework, and then the recording. The recording, actually, we're going to just give you the link because all the video files would be stored at the Zoom cloud. But anyway, the link is there, so click the link and you're going to rewatch the recording in class. And all others, the handouts, the PDF files, the Word files would be stored here. You can view it on your screen or can download. Either way, it's fine. And homework would be assigned here. And once you finish, you're going to gather the ABCD for the multiple choice questions, and then there'll be you can submit, and they'll be graded automatically for you. And every time you submit, right, you can check which ones you got it right, which ones you got them incorrect. And also, we do have the free response questions. Actually, this would be the emphasis we're going to do at Momentum Learning. Every week, we're going to give you the assignments for the free response questions, and this part would be graded manually. Actually, I would grade them. So for each one, I'm going to check whether your code is correct, or if it's incorrect, what was the issue and how this one can be fixed. So with the practice, guided practice, as mentioned, right, you don't have to get a 90% or more to get a 5 in the APCSA test. you should get a 5. So if you score, to be conservative, right, if you get 80% or more, then you should be able to get a 5. So we are confident, actually, almost everyone in this class would be able to get a 5 if you do follow guidance and also the practice. This class, actually, our plan is we're going to start this coming weekend and also finish April the 20th, 21st. And then the AP test actually would be the May 8th. So you should have enough time to take this class and also still maybe a week or two to wrap up, summarize, and then to participate in the final AP test. Since many students are not taking one AP tests, many are taking 2, 3, and I know, right, the max here, I know in Houston, in Sugarland area, some students are taking 7 AP classes, so they will be very, very busy. So we hope this class would be helpful for them to get the 5s. So if you do get a 5 for every AP test, I think that would be a shiny spot on your resume, and that can help you for your college application. All right, okay, I'll stop here and get some questions if you still have. There is a question: how much time does it take for this class? I think actually I did mention this one briefly earlier. In class, there'll be 2 hours every week, and after class depends. Sometimes would be 1 hour, sometimes may take 2 hours. Very, very unlikely you're going to spend more than 2 hours for each week. So anyway, our purpose is to help you. You still have to take the APCS class in school. Actually, we do expect, right, the prerequisite would be that students have taken the APCS test class in the 4th semester. So most of the students coming into this class actually know the basics, right? How a primitive data type is, how to write a loop, how to create an array, maybe not a list yet, but one-dimensional array, and also run the loops, right? Write a for loop, write a while loop, and write the if statement, if else, the switch case, and so on, right? These basic concepts should be familiar. And then we're going to start from here. The answer should be a small amount of time after class. Another one, how many would get a 5? Actually, if students enrolling in our classes, right, actually almost everyone would get a 5. I just want to say right here, this one actually is not hard. It will be easier than, to be honest, right? It would be easier than getting a 5 in a PreCalculus BC, getting a 5 in even Physics 1. Actually, Physics 1 would be harder than APCSA to get a 5. Okay, another question. The sample questions actually, for the free response questions, actually you can get all of the past problems and also the guideline. I mean, the scoring guidelines. I mean, the multiple choice questions actually is not available at College Board website. We'll provide those questions. We're going to actually make the the mock contest question and the test questions every session. So every time we're going to go through the topics. Here, the topics, right? We're going to write those questions. Actually, we do get help from the books, say Barron's, right? They have the AP, the book for the APCSA, and also for all other subjects. Actually, we would take some of the questions from there, and you can also do it, by the book. Actually, we strongly recommend you to work on those ones. Anyway, just spend 3 hours for 1 mark practice test. You're going to feel much more confident, because if you get familiar the pace, right? As I said, in the section 1, you have 40 problems, but you have 90 minutes, right? Not all questions would be, equal when for time you spend, right? So you get an idea, right? If I'm finished 1 hour, right? Which question should I be? Or when I finish the 30 questions, right? How much time should I spend? If I spend maybe say 80 minutes, then I'll be in trouble. But if I spend just 50 minutes, right, I'll be very good shape. And so get an idea of the pace. So practice which book. Normally, we recommend the Barron's version. Well, actually, if you go to the Amazon and pretty much all the Barnes Noble, I think that's the only book you can find now. But anyway, we're going to have a lot of the questions accumulated, in the past decade or two. So don't worry about the questions. We have enough questions. Anyway, each question is written or modified, adapted, right, to help you to understand the ideas listed here. So once you understand all the topics, every key idea, then you would not be concerned at all. The book actually would be the just to search for the APCSA from Barron's, then you would be able to get it. Barron's actually has the books, right, for pretty much every subject. There are others, right? Say Princeton Review also had it before, but maybe not the most recent one. Anyway, the last time I checked at my local Barnes Noble, I did not find the version from Princeton Review, but I still saw it from Barron's. So anyway, you can buy them. We're going to use some of them, but mainly we're going to use our own version. Anyway, is a combination of all the problems, the information, right, to help you to get a 5. Again, you don't need 100% correct, right, to get a 5. You don't need even 90%. If you get 80%, that would be more than enough to help you to get a 5 in the APCSA test. And that's what you need. But again, right, if you want to do better, if you want to do more, there is a lot more. Actually, many students actually also considering taking the ACSL contest. That's for American Computer Science League. The difficulty level actually would be comparable to the APCSA test, but you may have to do more practice for the programming part, and also you have to learn a few other topics that are not covered in the APCSA curriculum. Not like here, right? These are the topics covered in the test. But if you take the ACSL contest, then you have to learn a few more topics. Anyway, the difficulty level would be comparable. So I just want to mention, right, if you want to do more, that's one choice. Once you get a 5 and find out, yeah, computer science actually is fun, then maybe that's a place to go. Or the Computing Olympiad, USCO, USA Computing Olympiad. Actually, we spent a lot of effort in the past decade or two here at Momentum. Try to help students to do well in that contest. That's also based on this one. So if I've taken the APCS class, APCSA class, right, then you think this is fun, then maybe that's a activity you can take. All right. Okay. I think that's all I want to say. If you have any other further question, you can always go to our website, momentumlearning.org, and also you can reach our front desk at this number here, and also send email to this address. So we'll be happy to help you and to answer any question that you might have. And with this, I'm going to stop here and thank you for attending, and I'm going to see you in the near future.